Welcome to India and England News. Our guest today is Priyamvada Natarajan. She is a professor of astrophysics and physics at Yale. On October 29th, she will be honored at the New England Choice Awards Gala. We are going to talk to her about her journey in science and how inspiring it is for someone to be our role models and guide, and for many other young people as well. So, Priyamvada, welcome to our show, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be able to talk to you.
Now, I'm glad, maybe this is the first time I'm meeting somebody whose name is Priyamvada and whose name is after one of the friends of Sakuntala in Vigyan Sakuntalam, written by Kalidas. Is that true? That's how you are named?
My parents named me after that. They are great fans of Sanskrit poetry. And yes, that is the origin of my name. And I love it. It's a bit long, given that I live now in the United States. It's a bit of a tongue twister for people who are not of Indian origin, but I love the name regardless.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name, of course. How Kalidas can be wrong?
Yes, exactly. Well, the joke in my family, right? I have two younger brothers. So, but I was sort of the pet. I'm everybody's pet, right, in the family. And they would always joke that I was probably named before just before I even spoke, right? Because Priyamvada means Priyam Vadati Yasa, she who speaks lovingly.
Oh, excellent.
So they would always be teasing me saying, "Oh, really? I think they named you before you really verbalized."
So now let's we'll come back to your background in science and physics and astrophysics. But one of your passion is understanding the nature of dark matter, which is a very complicated subject, and I have absolutely no clue. And I'm sure that many of our viewers, they don't know what the dark matter is. So if you can explain that in some layman's term.
Well, first of all, if anybody really understood and knew what dark matter is, please come and get in touch, because we astrophysicists don't know what it is. So its true nature still remains elusive. So when we do the cosmic inventory of the entire universe and we look at the various constituents that compose the mass and energy of the universe, we find that the stuff that we are made of, ordinary atoms, everything that's in the periodic table, that's just a mere 4% of the total. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the matter, there is more matter. So made of some exotic particle, likely, that was made in the early universe. And that is the bulk of the matter in the universe. Like 90% of the matter in the universe is actually this invisible component called dark matter. But it is matter in the sense that it has gravity, but it does not emit, absorb, or reflect light. Luckily, so it's very hard to find where it is. But it turns out there are indirect ways in which we can figure out, how much dark matter there is and where it's distributed. It turns out that it's distributed everywhere in the universe. Like it's smeared like jam on bread, but that there are regions where there are clumps of dark matter. And because it's matter, it aggregates due to gravity. That's the only force, as far as we know at the moment. It's the only force that it feels. So, there are these 4 fundamental forces in the universe, right? So there's electromagnetism and the strong and the weak nuclear force. So these are forces that actually hold atoms together and so on. So dark matter appears to be exempt. It does not interact with any of those other known forces other than gravity. So gravity is the only force.
And now you kept saying about the universe. So again, it's what is the universe? I mean, it's just incredible. We look in the sky and, this is what all we can see. But as someone like you who really specializes in this area, how will you describe universe to a layman?
Oh my God, the universe is everything that there is.
How big it is, how it works, how vast it is, and what is happening today with the universe.
So we live in a universe that we now know is actually expanding. So, for example, there are billions and billions of galaxies in the universe. And the distances, and what I mean by expanding is that the distances between any two galaxies is actually growing with time. So it's not like, you're blowing a balloon and that is expanding into the air. It's not anything like that. I mean, it's, the way to think about it, space itself is expanding. And not only is it expanding, that's the universe, the entire universe is all the galaxies, the ones that we see, the ones we cannot yet see because they're really far away or they're too faint. It's actually speeding up. The expansion is accelerating. So that's very mysterious.
And how fast it is expanding, like to say?
Well, it's expanding. So how fast it is expanding depends on how far out you look. So a galaxy is expanding and hurtling away from our own galaxy faster if it is further away. So obviously, depending on the distance, it's hurtling faster and faster away. But of course, it's slow compared to the speed of light. So, speed of light is the ultimate speed limit in the universe.
So now, since you are exposed to Sanskrit poetry, I'm sure that you must be familiar with a term called Brahman, right? Aham Brahmasmi. So when you study science and astrophysics and all these mysterious stuff like universe, do you ever think about that phrase or Brahman or some sort of in a spiritual way look at the universe?
Well, I mean, when I look at the universe, right, there are multiple ways to engage with these kind of entities that are much bigger than ourselves, right? So the scale is just very grand. And so right now we have the tools of science, and the science can answer certain kinds of questions, and we are using them to the best of our capacities. But in the past, we've had philosophers, saints who've had, profound insights that have to do, again, as I said, with these mysterious components, right? So it's the imagination. So I always marvel at how rich the imagination has been of the ancients, across all cultures. We've had like remarkable origin stories that come from every culture. So we have the Hiranyagarbha Sutram that tells us how the Brahmand, how the universe, material universe actually came to be. Similarly, the Mesopotamians, the Chinese, every ancient culture that is refined, enough to have storytelling, the Greeks, everybody has this wonderful mythology. And there are elements that are common amongst all of them, right? So
that's true. Sure. Now, these days, the STEM is a very buzzword. Everybody's talking about it, and rightly so. And you are much ahead of this the STEM era. You were there before that. So how did you do that? How you got interested in science and technology?
So I was very fortunate. I was born and brought up in Delhi, and my parents are both academics. So, you can say in many ways, right? I won the birth lottery. I got the best parents that you could have possibly gotten. We had a house full of books. They really encouraged curiosity. And my parents bought me, when I was very young, I was obsessed with atlases. So I was obsessed with mapping all the time. I still am. Any kind of map, I would get completely engrossed, right? And so my parents bought me both a telescope and a microscope when I was very young. And the choice was very clear for me. It was the telescope, right? There's something about not being able to touch and reach things and yet comprehend, understand. I think that was for me the real kick. And also I got a computer really early on. My dad got me a Commodore 64. So I learned to program on my own.
Which year was that? When did you get that computer?
83.
83, okay.
Yeah. And I was still in school, and I learned to code. And then my first research project was with Dr. Nirupama Raghavan, who was then the director of the Nehru Planetarium in Delhi. And I made the star map. So I came up with the algorithm that generates the night sky over Delhi, which used to be published in a newspaper, right? So every newspaper has this, the stars at night kind of thing. And so I got hooked into research. So this was the 80s, right? Nowadays, every kid is doing a research internship like at 13 and 14 or whatever. Sure. At that time, it was very unusual. But I got my first taste of research and then I got hooked. And then I was very fortunate to get a scholarship to MIT. And so I came to college to the United States.
And which year was that?
I came in 1986.
1986. Okay. Now, coming back to STEM, so there's a lot of people are very conscious about that. And it's a great thing that we're trying to encourage that. What is your take on STEM and what the kids can do?
Yeah, so I am a firm believer that all knowledge systems are actually interconnected. So STEM, understanding using science, technology, and mathematics to understand the world, also needs to include the humanities. So I'm much more a bigger proponent of STEAM, which is now called STEAM, right, where you include the arts and the humanities into. So I just think that we live in such a complex and digital world that requires all of us to be fairly sophisticated in terms of our understanding of how science and technology works in order to be able to function well in a society. However, I don't think it needs to be at the expense, as I said, of the humanities or the arts. I think all of these knowledge systems, are very critical, and having like a substrate of exposure, expertise, and competency in all of them, I think is inevitable now to have a fulfilling life.
So now, as far as when it comes to the gender, it has been a lot in the news, especially when it comes to women in science and mathematics, and so many controversial, comments and studies, or people have said so many things. Now, according to my understanding, you are really at the peak of this. You were the chair of the department in science at physics at Yale, one of the best universities. Then you astrophysics, physics,
astronomy department, the
astronomy department. So you do all these things you are doing, and with your experience, have you experienced somebody comes to you and said, what you know about astrophysics and things like that? Have you ever come across that type of discrimination? Or
yeah, so I have because because of the way I was trained and the way my mind works, right? I've never been called out on my competence because I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and I don't have a problem admitting it. And also what I know, because I am driven to clarity. I really try to understand. I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So I've not had that kind of obvious call out where someone's questioning my expertise. However, things are much more subtle, even in my generation. So it's not so much that my competence is never called into question, but it's about recognition for what you've done. And what I find, and it's not the past tense, these obstacles are always there. They never go away. And I think one of the biggest challenges has been that, as South Asians, we come from a culture, right, and a background where self-promotion is not our forte. And we live in a culture where that seems to be required for rising in every profession. So people have a tendency, if you are not aggressive, to write you out, to write out your contributions. So not that they ignore you, but, because in science, it's all about peer review and citations, and people have to acknowledge your work because, you build on knowledge. So the basic premise is all the previous work is acknowledged. And there is where I have found the biggest obstacles, that I have to be present. I have to be there reminding people, so I have to go to lots of conferences, and I am invited to a lot of them. And I don't turn down as many invitations as I should because, I'm like, I don't want people to forget or write out what me and my research group has done. So I think the challenges are very much there. And, the challenges are different from the previous generation. And, the women who pioneered before me, they opened doors that have definitely made things easy. But I wouldn't say the obstacles, I wouldn't refer to them in the past tense even now.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the awards and all. I mean, we're looking at your award. I mean, you have got almost every awards in science you can think of, Guggenheim and all these things. So that's, again, congratulations. And we are very lucky that, we are honoring you. We had judges of 12 judges, and the decision was made in your favor. So we are really looking forward to seeing you then.
And I'm very grateful for this because, it's always very sweet when the recognition comes from one's own.
Excellent. So now let's talk about some fun things as well. So you read books, that's one of your, as you mentioned.
One could say obsessive reader.
Yes. Obsessive reader, even better. Yes, yeah, exactly. And what type of books do you read?
I read almost everything, except, I've never read a romance novel in my life. I'm not attracted to those at all. So I read a lot of science. I read a lot of fiction. I read nonfiction, history and politics. I love sort of, biographies. Pretty much anything really, I would read. I mean, I just don't read the super popular airport bestseller type of things. Having said that, I have read all Dan Brown's writing. I find it quite interesting, because he's written about dark matter. His subjects are so close to the things that I work on that I've always been stunned at how he picks these amazing plot twists and so on. But I think the favorite books to read are actually, detective stories. I still love right from the classics, Agatha Christie and Poirot and the number one ladies detective agency. It's Alexander McCall Smith. So that's another set that I've read everything that he's written. And they're all fun. They're all very different and they're really fun. Those are set in Africa. So I really like those as well. And I read a lot of fiction that's coming out of India. So we have fantastic new writers.
This is amazing. The whole the Indian is amazing.
It's just erupted. And then I recently, I read poetry as well. I love poetry and I read again, anything I can lay my hands on, and I try to engage and understand. So I also recently discovered there are wonderful young Indian poets. I met one whose work is just luminous, Tishani Doshi. So I'm always discovering more and more new things to read, and really thrilled with how much is coming out of.
My understanding is that I do a lot of reading. And the contribution made by Indians these days to the English literature is as good as anywhere in the world. So that's and both whether it's a poetry, whether it's a novel, whatever it is, just incredible.
Yeah. And we've had a tradition, right? I mean, we've had Rushdie, we've had Anita Desai, we have had some of these early writers who broke through and whose reading. Who sort of writing is sort of read everywhere in the world, right? So I think that there's been a much more sort of larger outpouring of talent from India. You've said so rightly. Yeah, there's just a lot.
There's a lot, yeah. What about music? So do you listen to some specific type of music, or are you thinking about dark matter and listening to the music in the background, or you can do only one thing at a time?
No. I always have music on in the background. Once again, I'm very voracious. I like all kinds of music. The only thing I kind of haven't developed a taste for quite is rap. Not quite. There's certain kinds of rap I like, but not really. As a genre, that's probably everything else. So I love Western classical, Indian classical. A vocal, instrumental. I love opera. And I also love all the sort of, experimental music, but I love ghazals. I learned to sing. I learned to dance.
So let's first come back to the ghazal. What are some of your favorite ghazals?
I guess Farida Khanum.
Farida Khanum.
Is one of my all-time favorites. It's
mine too. Actually, I also love that ghazal, and of course, a couple of others as well. Yeah. And you said you learned singing. So what do you sing? I'm not going to ask you to sing, but
that's okay. It's been quite a while. So I learned both Hindustani classical music, and I also learned Carnatic classical music. So I come from, parents are great music lovers. And of course, predictably, right, I'm a Tambram. So I predictably learned Bharatanatyam as well for a very long time. I love dance too. So, yeah, so I think I feel like very fortunate, It's a very rich life with all these wonderful things, great books, lots of lovely music, dance, and lots of happiness. Had a wonderful childhood, really happy childhood, really nice college years. I don't even know when I came to MIT. I was very young. I was younger than average, but I wasn't scared. I was just full of life and just embraced all these opportunities and realized how special it was. And yeah, so basically, I love life, right? So I love everything, everything.
So now talking about life and the music, I'm going to break my own bow I took before you. Do you think you can hum a line of Aaj Jaane Ki Jitna Karo? Or it'll be too.
Oh my God, that, humming that, it would be sacrilegious because I love the way Farida Khanum sings it. So I could sing another Faiz, which thankfully you may not find, easily a recording by some of the greats. So I can get away.
Let's try that. Sure,
But
yeah.
give me a second, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Take your time.
Yeah, and my throat is not the best right now. I would.
Anything you will say will be fantastic at this time. Sure. So this is pure fun. So let's see.
Yeah. जिंदा रहे तो हम कभी, जिंदा रहे तो हम कभी आपको सताएंगे, जिंदा रहे तो हम कभी आपको सताएंगे, जितना सताया आपने उतना ही हम सताएंगे, वो जिंदा रहे तो हम कभी.
Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, this is Besura. I hope it didn't come out as too.
no, it was perfect. I mean, just to take somebody and just ask on the spot and sing it requires a lot of.
I didn't prepare for this, right?
No, I mean, I think I was not prepared. I thought I'm going to talk to a scientist and astrophysicist, and then we are talking about music and books, which is what even better, So, so I think the couple of other things I wanted to ask you is when it comes to science and mathematics and physics and all, still there is some nervousness, at least how it is perceived among the kids. This, oh my God, mathematics and all. So, have you figured it out any easy way to tell, that it is not as complicated, it's not as tough, but it can be as fun as literature or art or anything else, to teach. So, what will be your advice to make it easy for people to follow science?
Yeah, so I think that you're absolutely right. There's especially in this country, right? There's a real stigma about
yes, yeah.
Stigma about science and mathematics, and it starts very early. So in school, right? By middle school, part of I think I don't have a solution, but I have some insights because of all these years of teaching, right? I find that, when kids are in middle school, right, they're actually still very much like sponges. So having good teachers who actually trained well to teach and who enjoy what they are teaching, I think could make all the difference. And as for nowadays, for kids, right, there's so many ways and outlets to learn. When I was growing up, right, there was no YouTube. I mean, there was no Google. There were no other things other than books, and you went into your classroom. And so you had this sort of formal education, and then you taught yourself with books that you got out of an actual library, and you work through them, right? So I think now I would urge young kids to explore all these avenues. Each one will find that there is a particular kind of medium that makes science and math less intimidating for them, right? So it could be videos, it could be, Khan Academy lectures. It can be all kinds of, there are now lots of science bloggers who are coming up with great videos explaining complex phenomena. So I just think that now there are a wide variety of media, and I would say just learn from wherever and just be open to learning. I think more important than, being particularly exposed to science or not, I think from a very young age, we should encourage our children to retain their sense of curiosity and wanting to learn. I think that is something that in the formal school system starts to get, diminished. And as long as you retain a sense of curiosity, learning anything is going to be easy, fun, and really enjoyable. Having said that, as we talked about before, right, we lived in a science and technology driven world. And so I think it's really important for all of us, regardless of what profession you end up pursuing or what you end up doing later in life, having a basic, solid basis in science, various subjects in science and mathematics is crucial. Is absolutely crucial. And I think storytelling is the key, basically.
Yeah, I think storytelling is absolutely.
Storytelling. That's why I say all these other media, I think what people have learned to do really effectively with videos are, and graphic novels and all of these different media are storytelling, very compelling storytelling.
Yeah. Now, before I let you go, one question is that, say, in the next, what is the latest in the research of universe right now? Or how do you say that, what is the focus going to be in the next 15, 20 years when it comes to universe?
So I think it's right now the discovery. So James Webb Space Telescope has been up in space for about a year now. So it's very early days. But even the first set of discoveries that we are getting are completely transforming our understanding of how galaxies form, how black holes form, and how is it that every galaxy in the universe, including our own, ends up with a big supermassive black hole in its center. So, understanding, we thought we understood everything quite well, and James Webb is shaking all of that up. We expected it. So that's the new frontier. So James Webb looks at the universe with a new pair of eyes in a wavelength that is called the infrared wavelengths, in electromagnetic spectrum. It's the very low energy, long wavelength. So that's the power of that wavelength of light, is that it penetrates through dust. So dust does not obscure. So the very early universe was very dusty. So we are now able to see farther out into the universe than we ever did. And we are starting to see the assembly of the first galaxies. We are close to catching when the first stars lit up the universe.
After so many years.
Yeah, because technology, we needed the sensitive detectors in the infrared, and then we needed to put them out in space to not be perturbed by the Earth's atmosphere, which does a lot of jiggling, right? Which is why we have all these space telescopes that need to be above the atmosphere. And so that is transformative. That's what is happening. So the revolution is going to be in our understanding. We are seeing the tip of the iceberg, as I said, with just the first year. But already we see that, this for the very relevant to the subjects that I work on, dark matter and black holes, James Webb has unveiled many, many more black holes in the universe than we ever thought there could be. And so that is pointing to a much more important. We thought that black holes were kind of marginal in the universe, but bit players. But now it looks like they are stars. They have played a very starring role in the early universe, and that they're very fundamental to the formation of a galaxy and how a galaxy forms. And I think that the black hole frontier is what's going to be unbelievably transformed in the coming years. So there's another set of satellites that will start from driven by European Space Agency. It's called LISA. And this is a set of satellites, 3 satellites that work together, and they will detect the waves, gravitational waves that are produced when 2 black holes actually collide with each other. And that's the last window that remains to be open. We have not yet detected that, 2 supermassive black holes colliding and shaking up space itself. It causes an earthquake in space itself. And we should be able to detect that.
I love this term, earthquake in space.
Yeah. And we've already detected smaller black holes colliding, so we know it's there, that it's there waiting to be detected. So I see this is the new window. Of course, the thing with science, it's surprising, right? You never know what new discovery is around the corner. So we just remain excited and open-minded.
So now this is my ultimately last question, okay? So recently we had this hearing in the US Congress about, and a lot of people were talking about UFOs and all these crazy things. What is your take, since you are very much more familiar about the universe and what's happening there? So the question is about your take on the UFOs. And secondly, is there any possibility of any human or any type of life anywhere else apart
So,
from
I mean, with the UFOs, look, it's very hard to know what is actually really unidentified and which are misclassified objects and reconnaissance. There's a lot of actual explanations that could be there for those objects. So I don't particularly believe that any of what we've seen so far is actually come from some alien civilization. I don't believe that. However, having said that, there is no reason to believe that there isn't life anywhere else in the universe. So we just know, even in the neighborhood, our own sort of neighborhood, we have found that there are many planets around nearby stars. So there are systems of planets around lots of nearby stars. So in a way, you can imagine, right, there are even more planets than stars in the entire universe, because each star has multiples, right? And so the probability that therefore we are unique is minuscule. There has to be life, but it may not be recognizable to us. And I think that is the kind of thing that I would want people to be cautious about and excited about. I mean, we shouldn't get fixated on carbon-based, our kind of life, right? It could be a completely different kind of life. And I'm reminded when I say this of, the scientist Stephen Jay Gould, who said, look, even on Earth itself, right, if we play back the tape of evolution, we run it backwards, and then we run it forward again, the end product may not be us, because there's so much randomness that is intrinsically a part of evolution that it's unpredictable what you would end up with, right? So even when we know the chemistry, it's not clear that we are a unique outcome. So I think we should just be open-minded and imagine all kinds of life forms. And, I don't know, I get away with this because, I also like to write. So one of the things that I'm constantly thinking about writing is sentient plants, right? Why I love plants, right? So why can't we have sentient plants, right? There could be a planet somewhere where you can have that, for example. Right?
Excellent. Priyamvada, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking with you, and looking forward to seeing you on October 29th.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. And you are such a fun person to have a conversation with, all over the place, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Sure. And I'm sure we'll meet face to face on October 29th. Thank you.
Thank you.